Welcome to State of the State. I'm Darlene DeRezzo, and I'm in conversation with Chef Potenza. We welcome him back to the show to continue our conversation about the Italian-American experience from Ellis Island to the table. If you missed our first interview with him, you can find that on Vimeo or YouTube. Welcome back.
Thank you. Thanks for inviting me. It was we did a great job with John the last time, and so yeah, we didn't finish it. We discussed more about the immigration movement and much less about the food. And I think I hope to cover that in whatever time you allow me to. So to brief recap, I had explained on the last show that there were two immigration times, the first and the second. The first actually occurred at the end of the 1600s, where many of the luminaries, doctors, poets, and educators came in America, along with women of the arts who worked on many of the American buildings, especially in Washington. The second immigration of 1865 and above that, toward the 20th century, with the immigration of labor, sort of to replace or to add themselves to the industrialization of America. You know, the country was getting sort of busier, richer, but they needed the manpower. And so Congress reached Italy as one of the nations and made it available for them, but the majority of the people that came at the United States at that time, 1886, were from the South, which were actually the remnants of empty promises, but the Italian government unified itself in 1865. Taxes relief were promised, you know, new irrigation for their farmland, and none of that developed. So the southern part of Italy, which we incidentally called Mezzogiorno. Mezzogiorno means midday in Italian. The Mezzogiorno is the Italy that starts right below Rome. Below Rome, it's Mezzogiorno. For years, one of the wealthiest part of Europe, when the reign of Naples and Sicily were called the reign of the two Sicily. And after the unification, the opposite occurred. That particular part of territory was completely impoverished. So they had to come here, and that's how they began.
And that is where the sense of family is really rooted, because they could not trust anyone outside of the family. The government taxed you on your garden. If you had a little garden outside, you had to be so careful.
Right.
So that sense of family really is rooted there.
That's right.
Yep.
Go ahead.
I was just going to ask you to continue, yeah.
Yeah, the unity, the family unity is what we see to this day. That is a culture, especially when it comes to the Southern Italian, and this detachment that the Southerners have always had historically with the Northern counterpart. Now, we call Italy a country of 20 regions, but they are really 20 mini-states where we unified the nation. We, you know, we pushed the French from the north back home. The Pope released the central part of Italy, and in the southern, the Spaniards, the Bourbon family, eventually left Naples and Palermo. But Italy was unified, and as Giuseppe Mazzini, one of the founding fathers of the Italian unification, along with Garibaldi and Cavour, the three of them were responsible for putting this package together. When Mazzini, during the signing day, he said, "We have united the country, now we have to unite the Italians." And that really hasn't happened. As far as regionality, it happens within our own family, our own township, but it doesn't happen at a national level. You know, it's not that easy to unite Italians because they've been subjected to so many invasions through century, you know. So, and that's where Darlene spins off into the food, and why Italian food is so varied and it's so difficult to make, should I say, to create almost like to put it in a frame somehow. We keep saying Italian cuisine. Italians in Italy do not like that line. They call it Italian regional cooking. So that would be, you know, the way they express themselves. Because dishes from one place to another, 10, 15, 20 kilometers may be called something completely different, prepared differently. So that richness has never stopped Italy, and every time, especially me, I go home quite often, about 4 times a year. Every time I go home, I learn something new. So it's so diversified, it's so embedded in our historical background, you know, all the influences that we've had through the years. When I first arrived here in Rhode Island in the 70s, and I was confronted with restaurants like Angelo on Federal Hill, you know, that was sort of the immigration restaurant. And that's when I saw meatballs placed next to French fries. And that's when you know that you're entering the immigration cuisine, when the rules are different, when all the guidelines from home have been abolished. You know, that's when we say jokingly, when the meatballs went on a date with the spaghetti and they never left each other. You know, so, or the pasta and beans. They go on a date and they remain friends forever. You know, there are some dishes that are truly immigration related. They have nothing to do with Italian food in Italy.
Is there something in Italy that is your favorite that you miss, that you can't get here, you can't make here?
I come from the Adriatic shores, so for us, my mom was an excellent seafood cook. She was not very good with meats, but she was very good with seafood. And we enjoy the shores, and also about 40, 50 kilometers inland, we are deep under the Apennine mountain. So lamb and pork and goats and sheep are very dominant in cooking, especially mutton. Mutton is sort of an older sheep, you know, which requires about 3 cooking process. Every cooking process is about 3 hours, so you pretty much cook it all day. You know, tenderize it. But seafood is what I miss, because the seafood in the Adriatic is much smaller than the one that we have here, and of course in an ocean. Also, what I miss is that through my years in the restaurant business, I was pretty much forced to serve fish filleted as opposed to whole fish with the bone left in, because customers, American customers, do not want to. They want to be. They don't want to really invest in timing when it comes to food. Food is not to them as a, should I say, it's part of a ritual to put people together, you know, to celebrate. But then there is the technical aspect behind, which is the dining, eating habit. You understand that? The way the American people touch food, the way they want like fish without the skin. They want, you know, they want it ready to eat. That's how we are as a culture, you know, whether it's related to our stressful life, you know. Whereas for Italians in most European countries, sitting down to a table, breaking down a fillet of sole with the bone in and the head and so on, it's an art form. They really make that time part of the experience. So these, you know, these different habits have a lot to do with the growth of the food and how we see food. That's why we, as a culture, I don't think we ever developed an educated palate. We like what we like,
Well, what would you call an educated palate? What does that mean?
Educated palate is if you were to blindfold someone, and I say this because we ran in our cooking school for over 15 years. We cooking classes for children. There were cooking camps, okay? And on a Tuesday, I used to blindfold the 10-year-olds and play this game with them. I will give them fresh herbs to bite into it. So it would be rosemary, it would be fresh thyme, you know, sage, basil. And of course, a child spits it out. Yuck, you know, the whole thing. But a child also has this incredible ability to file those flavors in their brain. From the palate, our gustatory glands shoots to a brain. It collects these information. It keeps them in there. Okay, so you reject it and you discard it, but it remains with you. And those are what we call in food the second gustatory, because the first ones are the ones that we have developed as human beings. If I were to blindfold an adult and give them food, they would be able to give me 5 answers. They cannot give me any other answers behind that, and I'll explain. Darlene will recognize salt. Darlene will recognize sugar. Darlene will recognize spiciness, heat. Darlene will recognize citrus or a vinegar, something sour. And then the last one, which is called umami. Umami is a flavor that developed in the Orient, in the Chinese and Japanese and Korean cuisine. But if you do not have those flavors as a young child, those basils, all those things, the licorice of a rosemary, or the sulfur that comes with sage, and it stays with you, that's not really a fully educated palate. That's what I mean by that. So you do that, and I know that because if I were to ask a typical Italian American, what is the best food that you remember? They'll say, oh, my grandmother made the greatest sauce. No, it could be that the grandmother was not even a very good cook, but it is the first sauce that he or she remembers. The filing, the memory food, the remembering of the grandmother that cooked without measuring. Those are the things that we file. But just like those memories, we file flavors, you know. So, but you know, it's not for everybody. I mean, like for instance, me to this day, after 52 years, Darlene, I don't eat ketchup, mayonnaise, or mustard. I eat only German mustard, the grainy mustard, but I don't eat American mustard. So it's part of our culture, you know. What are you going to do? So every culture's got something cool, but you know.
What's your favorite thing to cook?
I like to cook simple food. Fish is one of them. I don't like to coat food. Coating, to me, it's a no-no. And I've owned several restaurants where we never coated anything. Very rarely we would. Like, I don't like a dish that is typically Rhode Island. I'll give you one. It's called anything that has got a name Française or Française. Chicken Française, veal Française, fish, you know, sole Française. It's absolutely a dish that was created here. It doesn't appear anywhere in this country. Coating with flour, an egg, a chicken, a chicken breast, of a good quality chicken breast. It's in my kitchen, it's illegal. It's illegal to get a nice fillet of sole, and you probably paid $12, $13 a pound, and you want to put flour around it and an egg wash to fry it. Illegal. So that's my way of cooking. I don't coat anything. I don't put a shirt on food that is expensive and high quality. in good restaurants, they always say, you coat what you don't want to show. So I, for instance, would not eat meatballs out, you know, I mean, that's me.
Do you make meatballs?
I do.
Do you make pasta?
I do.
Okay.
I do make pasta and gnocchi. We have a cooking school, so obviously we do all those things, but my meatballs are from the Abruzzo region where I'm from. I shape them like an egg. I roll them in bread crumb, and then I fry them first. So the meatballs are fried lightly, and then they go on a plate without sauce. And then what you do, what we would do in our own home, we will put a little bit of tomato sauce on a plate and a meatball over the top, as opposed to cook them inside. Because traditionally the food, Darlene, that we created in America after the immigration, of the large, abundant portion, and that's how it signifies Italian-American food. Tables were always filled with a lot of food. We ate an incredible amount of hours because we celebrated life. Big portion gave us the importance of succeed, to have achieved the success for you and the family here. Coming from Italy, we were very little. On a Sunday, you're able to, and visually, this visual appeal will make the father, especially the head of the family, so to speak, proud of this accomplishment. That's how we went into that. We went into also the Southern Italian cuisine also developed a cuisine that was not very healthy. And of course, anybody who's going to watch the show is going to tell me that it's not true. Well, if you think that Italian grandmothers and mothers cooked nothing but cheap cuts of pork for their tomato sauce. So they call them the gravy. So the gravy was usually cooked 5 hours, 4 to 5 hours. There was not a tomato sauce in the world that takes that much time. It did take time because they needed to break down the tissue of the cheap meats that was inside. And once you cook pork ribs for 4 hours, you will have the meat breaking off, and it's going to be very delicious. But also there is about 3/4 of an inch of animal fat rising to the top of the sauce, which that would eventually cause all kinds of physical ailments, like the cholesterol, for instance. So we did not develop the cuisine. The Italian-American immigration did not develop the cuisine that was, when it came to the meats and so on, that was very healthy. We developed a cuisine that was healthy because we used a lot of our garden. We always reached out and went outside and picked up some of the food.
So you mentioned that the cuisine changed in that portion size changed to reflect new wealth. Okay,
Yes.
you mentioned cholesterol. So you know about the study done in the 1950s in Rosetta, Pennsylvania, which this Italian population, they did not die, right? And so they were not dying of heart disease.
Right.
They were eating all the things
that you were not supposed to eat.
That you were not supposed to eat. They had a diet high in fat and high cholesterol. And what studies found is that because of the emotional security and safety that the Italians felt within their nuclear family and the community at large, that is what kept them mentally and physically well.
And of course, then 50 years later, as you know, our research has changed all the time. Obviously, today, no nutritionists will tell you to do that, to have so much animal fat in your system, right? So today, the diet is shifted to legumes, and it's shifted to much more on a green aspect. And to go back what you just said, there are towns in Italy where people live over 105, 110 years old, and they seem to enjoy legumes, especially one called the cicerchia. This particular legume looks like chickpea. For some strange reason, in these towns, people don't die based on the diet that they follow. And I agree with you, but
the stress levels are low.
Had a lot to do with the unity and finding that refuge at home when they came home from work. Because I am sure that when they went to work in the morning, for any Italians, and it couldn't have been that easy to be assimilated, respected, and to climb on a business ladder or to make some sort of a progress. So they stuck with each other. And that is a story even in Rhode Island, where most of the people, when they arrived here, Rhode Island, especially Providence, being the second port of entry after Ellis Island, people gravitated toward where they had other people from their hometown. That sense of security that you just mentioned, duplicating the lifestyle of the steeple and the church back home here, let's say in Attic or West Warwick or even Charles Street or Silver Lake. That's why they created those tiny pockets of Little Italy, because they felt comfortable, but most of all secure. They knew that they could knock on somebody's door for anything, so. And I think food and the sharing of food is what makes our culture so great and so different.
What else do you want to say about the differences in cuisine?
Well, I mean, we have in Italy, as I said, the Italian food that is currently offered in Italy is not appearing in the American restaurants. Here, a lot of restaurants have adopted that American Italian immigration food. Perfectly fine. There's nothing wrong with that, as its own history, but we should never confuse the two.
Well, let me ask this then. Why were Italian Americans creating a new cuisine?
Because of ingredients lack, meaning that Italians, when they arrived, they could not find a good tomato.
This is true.
Southern Italian cuisine was predominantly based on red tomato sauce. But the funny part was that when the Italian first arrived, the tomato had only been on plates and consumed by Italians not even 150 years. Tomato was a relatively new fruit for the Italians. And it took over 60 years for them to even try it. Because Italians historically always rejected seeds. We historically always believed that seeds are part of our are a poisonous aspect of food. That's why we always remove seeds from tomatoes. We pass them when we make the tomato sauce. I don't know if you ever did with the family, So
Absolutely.
we'll try the skin and the seeds on one side and the pulp on the other. And so when they first arrived, they're not able to find good tomatoes. They did find what was available, especially in New England, the tomatoes from New Jersey, all locally grown. But the seeds were not the same. They were American-grown seeds, not the seeds that the Italians had back home, more acidic, with a taste of unripeness. So they kept adding sugar to the sauce. They kept adding carrots, cooking sweet or beta-carotene, so to soften it. They created a sauce, the Italian American, called fake sauce, which developed in the Second World War in Italy. Celery, carrots, and onion, sauteed with garlic, one piece of garlic, and olive oil, and then you would add tomato, and you cook all of that together, and then you puree, because as the Germans were retreating, they would impoverish the farmers by killing the animals. So the animals were not available, pigs, sheep, and so on. That was one way to hurt them financially. And so the grandmothers and mothers, the ingenuity, fake sauce, meaning that you tell a child that there is meat in there, but there isn't, so to speak. But it was much more flavorful, and today is one of the better healthy sauce that you can find in the market, right? All vegetable. So, I mean, our cuisine the cuisine that arrived from Italy, they're not getting treated well here. We go from Italy as a country on a 4 ingredients philosophy. There is nothing in America that Italian people can cook that stops at 4 ingredients. They can't. Because here we have a cuisine, the immigration cuisine, which is based on more is better. How to justify the price point by having more on it. And then we have certainly, we don't have here we have a completely rejected the Italian style structure, the way we dine. Why we start with just olives and something pickled, and then we We don't have a salad at the beginning of the meal. The Italian meal structure has completely revamped itself, and Italians eat salad at the very end, whereas American Italians eat salad at the very beginning. When you go to a wedding, they give you greens or an antipasto at the beginning. For us, it's always a pickle, something, some olives or whatever. Not cheese, goes into the first course, rice, starches, pasta. Second course, you climb, then you descend. And when you descend, you finish with the dry cheese and dry fruit and nuts. So you might ask me, but where is that tiramisu or the cheesecake? Those are ingredients called celebratory. I come over your house, I bring a tray of pastry. You'll make espresso, you'll make tea, but it's a celebration. It's nothing to do with the dinner. That is the Italian meal structure. Italians don't eat the starches at night. American Italians love starches at night. And so once you have a different Italian meal structure that's been completely revamped, we eat salad at the end, mostly with ingredients of very bitter greens with a lot of iron, which helps you digest. Here, we'll have a salad at the beginning, which starts with romaine, iceberg, big lettuce, or butter lettuce, or those even worse, those little mesclun mix, which have no nutritional value. What I'm trying to say is that Italian meal structure in Italy has a meaning. There's a ladder to follow, and there's a reasoning behind. And here, we do some things, but but to me, it works, it's fine, it's got its own history. We need to respect it. I cook American Italian food, but I make sure that I do. Especially the one when I say that there is a myth in this country that Italian people in Italy bathe in olive oil, they eat garlic all day, and they wrap themselves with basil leaves. None of that is true. Like it's not true that we eat garlic. We don't eat garlic. We cook with garlic, so.
Well, thank you for coming back.
Thank you. I hope we made the time.
We did make the time. We will, in our show notes, have information about your school.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, appreciate it.
I'm Darlene Derezi. Thank you for watching. Please find us on social media. We have a new Instagram account. It is State of the State RI. Thanks for watching.